You've probably heard of the blue whale being the Earth's largest mammal, weighing over 150 tons. That's the equivalent to 25 elephants, by the way. They also grow to around 98 feet. They really are gigantic, but growing conditions are way different in the ocean. So what about the largest land animals? Today, elephants hold the title, but if we take a look back in time, we'll find land creatures that completely dwarf these tusked giants. 252 million to 62 million years ago, Earth went through a period known as the Mesozoic era, and during that period a group of dinosaurs known as sauropods emerged. You should be familiar with sauropods. They're the four-legged dinos with the super long necks and tails. Well-known ones like the Brachiosaurus, Apatosaurus, and Diplodocus have been seen in museums since the 1800s, and yes, they were big, but nowhere near the biggest. The classic sauropod went extinct, and for a long time researchers believed their story ended there. But more recent evidence has shown that although a lot of them did go extinct, they had some cousins that survived for way longer. This branch of sauropod was larger, stronger, and way more suited for survival. These lumbering leviathans would dominate all 7 of Earth's continents and hold their own against all kinds of threats. They would come to be known as titanosaurs, Earth's biggest land animal. They would roam the Earth up until the very end, which was when the asteroid struck and finished the dinosaurs off for good. These creatures were completely unique, and it's thought that their survival success was mainly due to their unique genetics that merged characteristics from both mammals and reptiles. They burst onto the scene at the start of the early Cretaceous period around 125 million years ago, when the continents were much closer together. Over the next 80 million or so years, the continents slowly drifted apart, and the titanosaurs with them, leading to them being distributed almost everywhere on Earth. It's truly astounding just how long this dinosaur species managed to survive. Throughout the species' long lifespan, over 100 different subspecies of titanosaur existed, and although they were all big, some were truly ginormous. The smallest ones, like the Rhynchosaurus, Saltosaurus, and Magyosauros, weighed only around 6 tons, about the same size as an African elephant today. The biggest ones, though, like the Argentinosaurs and Pataeogitian, weighed over 60 tons. Yes, they were nearly 10 times the size of their smaller cousins. As we said before, the blue whale weighs over 150 tons, so the seafaring creatures still win when it comes to weight, but the longest titanosaur were similar in length to the blue whale. Just imagine a 100-foot animal that's bigger than 10 elephants wandering around. The name Titan sure is appropriate. As they existed for such a long time on completely different parts of the Earth, the 100 subspecies varied a lot. But there were 8 of these giant sauropods that were bigger than the rest. First up, we've got the Saltosaurus. They're named after the city of Salta in Argentina, which was the area they were first discovered in the 1980s. These guys were considered small compared to other Titanosaurus and measured 40 to 42 feet long. They weighed around 7 tons, about the same as your average truck. Although they were big, their size alone wasn't enough to protect them from other huge predators, so they developed a unique feature: body armor. Their whole body was covered in osteoderms, which are bony armored plates that stopped any predators being able to sink their teeth into their flesh. Other titanosaurs didn't need this defense mechanism. Their sheer size alone scared any hungry predators away. Close by to the Saltosaurus, also in Argentina, they had a cousin known as the Argentinosaurus. Evidence of their existence was found in 1987, when a rancher discovered a bone bigger than a human being. Yes, one bone that was bigger than a fully grown human. At first, researchers believed it to be a piece of fossilized wood. It wasn't until years later did they realize it belonged to a massive dinosaur. They still haven't been able to find a complete skeleton for the Argentinosaurus, but researchers estimate it to have been around 131 feet long, about half the length of a football field or 2 semi-trucks. Argentina was a hotspot for titanosaur species. Another one, known as the Dreadnoughtus, also used to live there. They had a total length of 85 feet and weighed around 65 tons. Although those 3 species were huge, there's one more species of titanosaur that was even bigger, so big that they earned the official title of the Titanosaur. Also existing in Argentina, their official name is Patagodoton majorum. and scientists believe they are the biggest land animal to ever live. They were close in size to the Argentinosaurus, and their femur alone measured over 8 feet in length. It was only discovered recently in 2014. Officially recognized in 2017 and is thought to have weighed over 77 tons. South America was where the biggest ones roamed, but giant sauropods are found throughout the world, with particularly large ones also found in Africa. The Rapidosaurus was discovered in 1998 in Madagascar and was one of the most complete titanosaur skeletons to ever be found. The entire skull of a young Rapidosaurus was found, and researchers estimated it would have been around 26 feet long. The adults, though, would have roughly measured 49 feet. Although not as big as their cousins over the pond, they sure knew how to survive. Their species almost made it to the very end and only went extinct 4 million years before the KT mass extinction event that wiped out all the dinosaurs. It's interesting to think that these absolute behemoths started their lives hatching from reptile eggs no bigger than a grapefruit. What's also intriguing about the early lives of the titanosaurs is that they had to fend for themselves straight from birth. An archaeological site in Argentina called Aucamahuevo is home to thousands of titanosaur eggs with hundreds of nests found. What's strange is that they were laid very close to each other, which has led researchers to believe that no adult titanosaur would be able to move around without crushing them all. It looks like the mothers would lay the eggs and then pretty much leave them to fend for themselves when they hatched. A titanosaur hatchling would have measured no bigger than a foot long and weighed around 10 pounds. It looks like these tiny titans were born ready to rumble as they would start foraging for food almost from the get-go. They certainly had your standard reptilian characteristics, but recent science has shown some very strange differences that have completely changed how researchers see their growth and development. They used to see these creatures as giant, overgrown reptiles and used your standard reptilian growth rates to predict their development. But researchers ran into a problem. With those growth rates, it would take even the smallest titanosaur nearly a century to reach full size. This meant they either had a super long lifespan of a few hundred years, which is unheard of for any land animal, or they would have been tiny for most of their lives. But more recent evidence has shown it might be something completely different. Titanosaurs' bones have a much denser blood supply than most reptiles do, meaning they would have grown much faster. This new bone data shows that titanosaurs' growth was actually on par with mammals like whales, which is much, much faster than any reptile. This sheds some light on the mystery of how they got so big. It looks like they reached their full size in just a few decades and probably lived to about 60 years old. What's also strange about titanosaurs is that their body temperatures would have been also closer to a mammal's than your average reptile. It's impossible to know exactly why they were able to get so big, but it's thought it's probably got something to do with these strange genetic characteristics that in some ways are closer to a mammal than a reptile. It's also thought it had something to do with their full plant-based diet. Researchers believe their rapid growth rate was powered by their appetite for plants. They would devour all plant life from the ground up to the highest trees, which would explain the need for their long, mobile necks. They also replace their teeth every 20 or so days, the highest of any dinosaur, which shows they probably never stopped chewing. The titanosaurs were not only huge, but they also had one of nature's best designs for survival. They were too big and too tough for predators to even think about eating. Their digestive system could handle almost any plant, which meant they almost never ran out of food, and they were able to start foraging pretty much from birth. This shows how they were able to survive on nearly every place on Earth. Had it not been for the massive asteroid impact 66 million years ago, these titans would have kept on thriving all over the world, even in Antarctica for who knows how long. We know they were huge, but you've got to remember that new evidence is being uncovered all the time. The massive femur weighing over 8 feet was only discovered in 2014, and who knows, maybe later discoveries will find bones that are even larger. The mystery of these mega titans is still unfolding, and there remains more pieces of the puzzle that still need finding.